This week's reading and course content aims to expand on what is meant by document design and as visual rhetoric. In our study of document design, we've spent time interacting with content that focuses in a very professional writing kind of way on the principles of document design, such as contrast, repetition, alignment and proximity, shape, color, typography, and even punctuation. The content you've studied has suggested more than simply what kinds of designs we prefer as readers and viewers. Its authors have also explained why these preferences are this way. This week, we will transition to consider the relationship between designer-writer and reader-viewer in a more theoretically rhetorical way. By rhetorical, I mean to emphasize that meaning in these compositions comes from relationships among text, creator, and participant reader or viewer. I would discourage you from thinking that this shift represents some sort of media-text dichotomy when you encounter densely prosed paragraphs that contrast with last week's reading of design images in the documentary that you viewed. Consider instead, as Cynthia and Richard Self suggest, that these texts are situated in densely complex political landscapes, rather than privileging one form of literacy over another. As Porter and Sullivan point out in their article, Repetition in the Rhetoric of Visual Design, we cannot rely on blanket assumptions about how users will interact with text. Their responses in experiencing, that is, reading or viewing and understanding a text, vary based on their individual backgrounds, cultural and social interactions, and the immediate context surrounding a text. This video, for example, is being used in a graduate level class. So you bring to its viewing certain attitudes about my role as the professor and your role as a student. Its location online, either in YouTube or embedded in a course management system such as Blackboard, also impacts how you view and or interact with it as well. Add to that the world outside of this screen, that world around and behind you, and in front of you right now, and we have a complex context in which you experience this course content. I encourage you to review this week's content as a scholar and learner. Critically consider the questions posed by the readings while growing more aware of how these writers are using visual rhetoric to organize their ideas. Certain texts, such as Porter and Sullivan's, should pose questions for you to consider theoretically, such as what visual elements are present in a primarily print-based text? And yes, words are images and symbols. What is the benefit and or risk of using repetition in a text? In addition, notice how they conduct an empirical study of Max and structure the article visually to show off its scholarly genre features. Paragraphs, headers, disciplinary terms such as methodology, data, and users all function to help you orient to its content as you read. In many ways, the content in this week's course will ask you to draw together bodies of images and text that you might otherwise separate into high literary or theory and poetic or design. Instead, these scholars ask you to look at ways that these texts should be drawn together and critically considered. For example, texts such as John Berger and Susan Sontag's will prompt you to think specifically about our cultural responses to certain types of images such as art and photography. You might not choose to work with art or photography in your own scholarly or professional work, and you might wonder, why is she asking us to study this? Both Berger and Sontag do a wonderful job of revealing how our attitudes towards images are influenced by deep cultural values and historical practices. I hope that this week's text helped you to develop a more critical eye when interacting with a variety of image texts, and I look forward to reading your responses.